lost another type 1 diabetic to insulin rationing. This was something that, we had hoped would never happen again.
The cost of insulin is ridiculous.
I'm really sad over his loss. That should have been preventable. There's no reason for it.
It's hard for me to even go in there and look at his casket, because, like I said, he's gone now. I don't have that, hey, let's go down south. Hey, let's go here.
No parent should bury their child, but Friday, David Radcliffe laid his son, Jesse Shearer Radcliffe, to rest. Radcliffe says his son was rationing his insulin.
Something's got to be done. This country's got to stop walking with blinders. They have to realize that lives matter, whether it's black, white, red, green, blue, yellow, or orange. Lives matter. And if a person needs a certain medication to live, it should be offered.
We send all the love and support to this family. We know what they're going through.
Nicole Smith Holt is an advocate for affordable insulin.
So this is my memorial tattoo for Alec.
Nicole's son Alec was 26. He died trying to ration his insulin 1 month after losing health care coverage. Nicole was among a recent caravan of Minnesotans who traveled to Canada in search of insulin, which is 10 times cheaper there than it is in the U.S.
After losing my 26-year-old son to the same situation, and fighting so hard at the legislative level to pass the Alec Smith Emergency Insulin Act, and it going nowhere, and telling them if they did not implement this law that we were going to lose more lives, this just goes to show that we were right. They were murdered. They were murdered. They were killed by a big pharma. The cause of death should actually be on their death certificates, corporate greed.
I just think, this country is backwards. I'm a veteran, so I've been around the world. I've seen other countries, how they operate.
I want justice for all the deaths.
Now another family left leaning on their faith and cherishing memories. Jesse's godfather, Ian St. James, holds memories in his heart and hands.
One of his last things he wrote was, "I love you and everything about you, and don't ever stop being you. Accept everybody and everything, and be kind and help people." And that's all he ever did.
This picture changed America.
Yes, yes, yes. She wanted that contrast between what he was and what hate did to him.
Emmett Till was 14, accused of whistling at a white woman in Money, Mississippi. He was kidnapped, beaten, shot, and tossed in the Tallahatchie River.
He would be 78 today. And that generation right now, they're enjoying, the fruits of their labor, and he's missed that.
Deborah Watts was too young to remember the day her cousin, Emmett, died. But she heard stories from Emmett's mom, Mamie Till, who insisted on an open casket funeral so the world could see.
It was a lynching, and she wanted to make sure that the public understood it and that they could see I'd say the sins of our hatred, and what it really looked like. I don't think that's something many mothers would do, particularly at that time in 1955. That was a strong statement. I promised her that I would continue her work and build upon the legacy that she was trying to make happen, and to fight for justice. She never saw justice for Emmett.
Today is the 78th birthday of Emmett Till.
So she co-founded the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation.
This is about history.
Today, on a community radio show, Watts celebrated what would have been Emmett's 78th birthday. And she talked about her family's unfinished business.
Justice for Emmett takes on a lot of forms. Looking at how we can help other families achieve justice, bringing attention to the racism, the hatred, and violence that still, I think, is in our country. The families of Philando Castile, the families of Jamar Clark, the families of Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and others. There's some similarities there. Maybe lynching is not in the same form that it was when Emmett was murdered, but there are some strong connections behind the context So we're working on something, an initiative called the Victims of Racially Motivated Murder. It's a way to empower those families.
In 2017, Emmett's accuser said she lied, but there have been no charges against her. The men accused of killing Emmett were acquitted by an all-white jury. Photography, sometimes painful, helps tell the story of history. Watts wants to make sure some history never repeats.
I always want to make sure that the world understands who Emmett was and the sacrifice that she made to show his body. Hatred doesn't belong, violence doesn't belong, and certainly racism doesn't belong. And that was her message, and I want to make sure I bring honor to that.
Without some of those pictures and today without video, some might never know the violence against certain people. 100 days after Emmett's murder, Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. Parks later said she thought about Emmett Till and just couldn't do it. And Jana, we all know Rosa Parks taking a stand by remaining seated led to the Montgomery bus boycott.
We carry the weight of movements strapped over our shoulders.
If poetry is her weapon,
Hashtag say her name. Jasmine Sierra.
Silence is an enemy.
52-year-old trans woman. These are all people who have been murdered. Maya Young, 25-year-old black trans woman.
And Minneapolis City Council member Andrea Jenkins
Shantae Thompson,
says she won't be silent.
34-year-old trans woman of color.
Jenkins is the first openly transgender black woman elected to public office in the U.S.
My heart is really, really, really pained right now. You know, Malaysia Booker was one of 5 black trans women killed this year, and her death, all of them hit me really hard, but her death was so sad because just weeks earlier she had been like brutally beaten.
That is the attack in Dallas, which gained national attention in April. Malaysia Booker, a transgender woman, didn't remain silent.
This time it was me, the next time it could be someone else.
This month, Booker was shot and killed. Still no arrest.
As a transgender woman, are you fearful?
You know, I am, Adrian, because the attacks are so just relentless.
Last week, the Trump administration revealed a proposal could allow federally funded homeless shelters to deny services to transgender people.
HUD has decided that trans women are no longer welcome or protected in homeless shelters. I mean, the most basic human right is being denied.
She says she will use her voice to encourage a safe place for all.
Particularly black trans women and women of color, because I believe that they are the most marginalized people in our society. And when we lift up the most marginalized people in our culture and society, I think everybody benefits. Sky Maccabee, 26-year-old black trans woman.
She's also looking forward to a time
D. Wiggum,
when no new names are added
25-year-old black trans woman.
to the list.
Daniqua Dodds, 22-year-old black trans woman.
Welcome back, everyone. At first glance, how do you identify me? I identify as a black woman, but racial identity is still a fundamental dividing line in our country. This month, we had some uncomfortable conversations, including which term should you use, black or African American?
I think they don't understand who black people are.
On the Breakfast Club, Senator Kamala Harris, also a Democratic presidential candidate for 2020, defends her heritage after critics questioned her blackness.
I'm not going to spend my time trying to educate people about who black people are.
Notice she underscores black. But some do want to understand. For example, Tracy sent me an email saying, there is a question that I have always been afraid to ask. In our charged society these days, you have to be so careful about what you say so as not to offend someone. I never know whether to refer to someone as African American or black.
Well, black and African American, they are interchangeable. But something unique is happening
in American society.
Keith Mays is a professor of African American and African Studies at the University of Minnesota. He says some believe African American is too restrictive for the current population.
But those who are descendants of slaves, those who we call African American, we refer to as African American descendants of slaves, the percentage of those black folks are going down. So it used to be 97, 98, 99% of black folks that you would encounter were descendants of slave African American. But we have more black people here from other parts of the diaspora and from the continent. So we have a lot of East Africans here, a lot of West Africans. We've always had a lot of Caribbean blacks in the United States.
In part, Mays says the term African American highlights origins in the African continent and history on the American continent.
When I address you as black or African American, they both apply okay, but it may be a situation where there may be some black folks whose parents come from other parts of the world who may not identify with African American. It's better to call them Black American.
The national theme this year for Black History Month is migration. Turns out, about 9% of black people in the United States are foreign-born. That's according to the latest data from the Pew Research Center.
Generally, black or African American is okay. Colored is not, Negro is not, is not. And that's another educational moment that we have to have in this country, because we don't even know what terms to use when addressing people.
This is Giovanni's first time driving.
Sometimes the digital scrapbook of life closes.
Look at his smile.
Too soon.
He just wanted other people to have love and laughter. When I see his pictures, that's when I choke.
Okay, can you stop?
I never in a million years believed that I would bury one of my kids.
Rolanda Schmidt and her husband Roger are doing what no parent should. Their son, Giovanni, ended his own life 2 weeks after celebrating his 18th birthday. A study published this week in the Medical Journal of Pediatrics shows suicide attempts among black children and teens are increasing.
It is real. It's an epidemic.
Just don't give up on your kids. And they'll push you away, but they really want you close.
I sat in my son's room for 2 hours and just cried, smelled his clothes.
But the Schmidt's pain has led to promise for others.
I've only seen 2 miracles in my lifetime, like of living, and I'm 49 years old now. This, by far, is probably the biggest miracle that would ever happen. Because of him, people are breathing today.
People like Damon Ward.
It's a blessing.
Damon is the Schmidt's family attorney. Giovanni's gift of a kidney now gives Damon more time with his family.
I've been on dialysis for the last 3.5 years and pretty much resigned myself to being on dialysis for the rest of my life. But I was on a transplant list.
Giovanni became an organ donor at 16 when he received his driver's license. The rhythm of Giovanni's heart, love.
This is Giovanni's heartbeat. Before we pulled the plug, or they pulled the plug, they got a
EKG
printout of his heart, and they gave it to everybody that was in the room to signify the life that he was about to give to others. The nurse came in and she said, a 20-year-old is going to get your son's heart. A 50-year-old is going to get your son's lungs. 30-year-old or somebody was going to get his kidney. 60 people would get his tissues, and it's just surreal.
Through the tragedy of the loss with Giovanni, though, it's been a great light at the end of the tunnel, or a beacon that we can hang on to.
The solace to me was maybe I would get a chance to touch his heart again, maybe, and hear it through somebody that had it.